best of me and pretty much played the last 3 games with a broken hand. So that's what it is.
And then
Rich Paul has recently drawn attention due to comments made on his podcast alongside Max Kellerman. While podcasts hosted by players have become common, Paul's position as an active agent has raised concerns among analysts, former players, and media figures. One of the strongest criticisms came from former NBA player Austin Rivers. Speaking on his podcast Off Guard with Austin Rivers, Rivers questioned why an active agent would host a podcast discussing trades, players, and team situations. He argued that agents are not players, and that public commentary from an agent can negatively impact negotiations and player representation. Rivers pointed out that anything Rich Paul says publicly can be interpreted as reflecting LeBron James, given their long-standing professional relationship. Paul is the founder of Clutch Sports Group and represents several high-profile players.
My ankle was the only thing that was kind of bothering me. Well, obviously bothered me in the later stage of the season.
Including Anthony Davis, Draymond Green, and Fred VanVleet. Recent controversy intensified after Paul discussed Lakers-related matters on his podcast. He spoke about a disagreement involving Austin Reeves' agent and suggested that the Lakers should consider trading Reeves for Jaren Jackson Jr. These comments drew criticism from multiple analysts, including Stephen A. Smith, who questioned whether such discussions were appropriate for an agent. Paul has also stated that the Lakers are not current title contenders, further fueling debate. While LeBron James publicly claimed that Paul speaks independently and does not represent his views,
We were just hit with injuries after injuries after injuries, and it was just hard to come back from that.
Last question, Dylan.
many observers remain skeptical due to their close association. Critics argue that this situation highlights broader issues within the NBA, including a lack of boundaries between media, agents, and league influence. Some believe the league's leadership has allowed these lines to blur over time, leading to conflicts of interest and ethical concerns. Austin Rivers' main question continues to resonate. Should an NBA agent publicly comment on players, trades, and teams when those comments could directly affect careers and negotiations?
I don't understand what's going on in the replay center, to be honest. I think I said it this year or last year or whatever. D'Lo clearly gets hit in the face on a drive. What the fuck do we have a replay center if it's going to go? It doesn't make sense to me. It makes no sense to me. It bothers me. I'm sorry I didn't answer your question, but that shit is like...
Their role has been clear and narrowly defined. Represent players, negotiate contracts, protect client interests, and maintain professional relationships with teams and league officials. While agents have always wielded influence, that influence was typically exercised privately. Public commentary on roster construction, player value, or trade speculation was left to journalists, analysts, and former players. Rich Paul's entry into the podcast space challenges this long-standing separation. By publicly discussing team strategies, player performance, and potential trades, Paul has blurred the line between agent, analyst, and media personality. This shift has raised legitimate concerns about conflicts of interest, especially when the subjects of discussion involve his own clients or teams closely connected to them. Austin Rivers' criticism stands out because it comes from someone who understands the league from a player's perspective. Rivers is not attacking Paul personally, but rather questioning the appropriateness of the role Paul has chosen to play publicly. His argument centers on professionalism and responsibility. According to Rivers, an agent speaking openly about trades and player situations can directly harm the leverage and negotiating position of players, especially those not represented by that agent. One of the most controversial moments from Paul's podcast was his discussion involving Austin Reeves. Reeves, a key contributor to the Los Angeles Lakers, is not a Clutch Sports client. When Paul
LeBron said that when they put together the quote-unquote super team, it was a lot tougher on them than what you guys are going through. Do you believe that?
What does it matter? We just want a cookie for it? I mean, what is it?
Well, it seems like he did.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
In professional sports, perception matters. A single comment from a powerful agent can shape narratives around a player's value, role, or future. When that agent represents some of the league's biggest stars, the weight of those comments increases significantly. Critics argue that Paul's platform gives him disproportionate influence over discussions that should remain impartial or at least independent. This is where the LeBron James connection becomes central to the conversation. Paul and James have one of the most well-known agent-player relationships in sports history. Their partnership helped build Clutch Sports into a major force within the NBA. Over the years, Clutch has represented numerous high-profile players and has been involved in several blockbuster moves. Because of this history, many observers find it difficult to separate Paul's public statements from LeBron James's interests. While James has stated that Paul speaks for himself, skepticism remains. In professional sports, optics matter just as much as intent. Even if Paul's comments are independent, the perception that they may align with LeBron's preferences creates doubt. This perception becomes more significant when discussing the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers are one of the league's most influential franchises, and any public commentary involving them attracts heightened scrutiny. When Paul comments on the Lakers' championship chances, roster decisions, or internal issues, those comments carry implications beyond simple opinion. Some analysts argue that this situation reflects a larger issue within the NBA, the consolidation of power among a small group of individuals. Agents, star players, media personalities, and league officials are increasingly interconnected. This interconnectedness can create environments where accountability becomes unclear and boundaries are easily crossed. The NBA has evolved into a league driven heavily by star power. Star players influence team decisions, coaching hires, and even front office strategies. Agents representing those stars naturally gain influence as well. While this dynamic has helped players gain more control over their careers, it has also raised questions about fairness and competitive balance. Critics of the current system argue that the league has allowed too much flexibility without establishing clear guidelines. When agents become media figures and commentators, the risk of ethical conflicts increases. Unlike journalists, agents are not bound by standards of neutrality. Their primary obligation is to their clients, not to objective analysis or public transparency. This raises an important question. Should agents be held to different standards when speaking publicly? Some believe that the NBA Players Association and the league itself should establish clearer rules regarding public commentary by agents. Others argue that free speech should not be restricted, and that the responsibility lies with audiences to critically evaluate what they hear. However, the issue becomes more complex when comments have tangible consequences. Trade rumors can impact locker rooms. Public criticism can affect player confidence. Speculation can influence contract negotiations. When those narratives are shaped by someone with direct influence over player careers, the stakes are higher. Another aspect of this debate involves the media's role. Sports media outlets often amplify controversial statements because they generate engagement. In doing so, they may unintentionally legitimize commentary that crosses professional boundaries. This creates a feedback loop where controversial remarks lead to more attention, which leads to more commentary. Austin Rivers' question, "Why do you have a podcast?" resonates because it cuts through the noise. It is not about silencing voices, but about understanding roles. Rivers is essentially asking whether the benefits of an agent having a podcast outweighs the potential harm to players and the league's integrity. Supporters of Rich Paul argue that the sports landscape has changed. Players, agents, and executives are no longer confined to traditional roles. Podcasts and social media allow for direct communication with fans. From this perspective, Paul's podcast is simply an extension of modern sports discourse. They also argue that transparency can be beneficial. Hearing directly from influential figures can provide insight into how decisions are made. However, transparency without accountability can become problematic. When powerful voices are not challenged or regulated, imbalance can occur. The situation also highlights the NBA's leadership approach. Commissioner Adam Silver has often emphasized player empowerment and flexibility. While this philosophy has helped modernize the league, critics argue that it has also led to a lack of enforcement when boundaries are crossed. Past controversies involving player movement, trade demands, and agent influence continue to shape this narrative. Some observers believe that certain high-profile trades set precedents that encouraged aggressive tactics. Over time, these tactics became normalized, even when they raised ethical concerns. Whether or not one agrees with these criticisms, it is clear that the league is at a crossroads. The roles of players, agents, media, and executives are overlapping more than ever. Without clearer definitions and expectations, conflicts like the one surrounding Rich Paul's podcast are likely to continue. Looking forward, the question is not whether agents should be allowed to have public platforms, but how those platforms should be used responsibly. If agents choose to enter the media space, they may need to adopt higher standards of restraint and clarity. Austin Rivers' comments reflect a desire for professionalism and balance. His criticism is not about shutting down conversation, but about protecting the integrity of the game and the careers of players who may be affected by powerful narratives beyond their control. Ultimately, the controversy surrounding Rich Paul's podcast is more than one individual. It is a reflection of broader structural changes within the NBA. As the league continues to evolve, so too must the standards that govern those who hold influence within it. The central issue remains unresolved. How can the NBA ensure that influence is exercised responsibly, transparently, and fairly in an era where everyone has a platform? That question will continue to shape discussions around agents, media, and power in professional basketball.